Chapter 9. The Earth's safety depended on Pat returning to KOBO? This dude went from creepy to completely insane. It's not that Pat didn't want to continue broadcasting. She would have loved to keep showing up day after day and maintain her routine. It was about the money. With no more funds showing up, Pat had to earn a living, and KOBO wasn't providing any monetary value. Also, now that someone or something had shown up and told her that she had to start broadcasting again, her inner rebel wanted nothing more than to defy this walking chia pet. Whether or not she had started broadcasting again was not Pat's main concern at the moment, though. The otherworldly visitor already had her in his grasp. Now she needed to figure out a way to get out of here. As a million thoughts flashed through her foggy brain, Pat found herself only able to say one thing. What? KOBO, its importance cannot be understated. We need you to continue broadcasting, just as you did before. Pat could feel the wriggling from under the skin of the visitor start to slow. His grip loosened slightly, but Pat was still firmly held in place. Okay, Pat decided to accept the visitor's premise. What choice does she have? So, if I go back to the radio station and hop on the mic, you'll let me go and leave me alone? It's not about you just starting again. We need the show to return exactly as it always has been. The visitor released Pat and straightened his clothes. I apologize. I didn't mean to scare or hurt you, Pat. I have been sent here to fix this issue. We need KOBO back. Pat, finally free from the visitor's cold hands, couldn't help but be a little curious about what this guy meant when he said he needed KOBO. Who sent you? For what? It's difficult to explain, Pat. Well, you came all the way here to St. Farr, and supposedly you are here just to get me back on the air, so I think you can take the time to explain it to me. Very well. The Interspecies Space Federation neutral site is positioned directly above the KOBO antenna, and we use the broadcast to keep order on the ship. A blank look filled Pat's face. She wasn't just confused, she once again thought that this whole thing might be a dream. She replayed the explanation in her mind, but none of the words seemed to make any sense. She turned her head to look at the huge metal antenna towering over the rest of the town square. Then she looked up above it. She saw nothing but a few exceptionally fluffy cumulus. Nothing was directly above it. Also, interspecies? Pat was pretty sure that kind of stuff was illegal. Huh? The visitor looked like he was now starting to reach exasperation. He calmly continued to explain. All intelligent life in the universe that has been able to develop deep space travel and communication naturally find the other intelligent life forms that have developed that same technology, he started. Pat seemed to consider that thought. Then she comprehended that it was plausible, so he continued. When a species reaches that point, they are joining hundreds of other species that have already taken the steps. The different species all have different customs, goals, and histories. Okay, Pat wasn't so sure about the hundreds of species achieving deep space travel, but those hundreds of different groups would definitely have some differences. Sure. There is a set rule of guidelines any species at that level must follow if they wish to peacefully interact with the other species. The Interspecies Space Federation has delegates from every major spacefaring species, and those delegates work together to develop standardized rules and enforce those rules across the universe. Space Police. Well, like Space UN and Space Police. Pat was only half paying attention at this point. She had heard some strange stories about St. Farr, but this was easily the weirdest explanation for anything that she'd heard in her entire life. At this point, she was just trying to get out of the conversation. The visitor seemed just as annoyed as Pat. Sure, if that's how you understand it. He paused, but the explanation was far from over. Although these species all have the ability to deep space travel and send communication out into the universe, they do not have any standard language or communication method. Got it. So for the neutral site to operate smoothly, we refer to your broadcast. How does that work? Each species has a way to experience sound, either auditorily or through the vibrations in the air. All schedules and deadlines align with the music on your playlist. For example, I move from my shift in the infirmary to my meeting with the botanists when lucky is followed by shape of my heart. This entire explanation went from making 0 sense to being completely stupid. Peace in the entire universe depends on the 90s and 2000s music obsession of a random lady in St. Farr, Texas. She didn't even want to accept that aliens existed, although the evidence of the past 5 minutes seemed to be proof of that. Then why don't we just loop the playlist? The visitor smiled slightly. He had been expecting that question. We also rely on you to relay news from Earth each day. Humans are unpredictable and volatile. The current position of the Interspecies Space Federation neutral site was selected because it is convenient for most species involved. If Earth becomes dangerous or inhospitable towards us, we need to know with enough time to select and relocate to an alternative location. So it wasn't Pat's radio persona that she had spent years crafting that made her broadcast so important. She just happened to find the perfect format to be a small but necessary cog in the management mechanisms of the cosmos. That is, if she believed a single word the school had been saying. So now you understand? The visitor asked. Oh, totally, Pat said, putting on an exaggerated, reassuring face. I completely understand. I'll totally go and do that right away. I just need to head home and get my supplies. Great. I will let my superiors know. We eagerly await your return to the airwaves. Pat gave the creature a thumbs up. The visitor touched a small device on his waist and disappeared instantly. Finally, Pat took a deep breath and opened the driver's door of her truck. She climbed in and started the engine. It was crystal clear what she needed to do. I need to get out of here.